let's ruin a career, shall we? Just joking. Today in this video, as you can see by the title, I'm going to be reacting to some of Uncarley's favorite books, at least the ones that I've read, to do a little bit of a read on her. Not trying to end her career. I don't know her in real life. This is not a critique on her intelligence, her self-worth, or even the quality of her content on BookTube. It's just a little bit of fun. For those of you who don't know, Uncarley is a creator here on BookTube who's from Canada, whose channel has been absolutely exploding recently because she's awesome. She's really funny and she has a really unique, fresh take on books. And so she's been really successful. And she recently released a video recommending her favorite books, and considering I've read a handful of them, I decided to react and tell you what I think about these books and what I think they say about her. All right, let's get started. The first book is none other than Normal People by Sally Rooney. This is a hugely popular book, and I'm not surprised that it's her favorite. A lot of you guys will remember last summer the show came out and people went in bonkers because the story is amazing. It follows Marianne and Connell, who kind of like had this thing in high school that they were ashamed of and they kept hidden, and then they end up going to university together and they have to deal with how their romance and their like friendship is going to evolve as both of them are changing. It's a really beautiful coming of age story, and it deals with interesting questions of class and privilege as well. And I really loved it when I read it. I read it 2 years ago when I was 19, and I was also at this intersection of like my high school life and my college life, and kind of having to understand how my relationships in high school were going to change because I was changing. And so I felt like I really saw myself in the text, and so I loved it. And I finished it, and I couldn't recommend it enough, gave it 5 stars, and I really, really loved it. And I think a lot of people love it when you're at this age and you read it. It's something it's a really meaningful text. And so I can't fault Uncarley for liking it. However, I will say that it deals with questions of trauma and abuse, and the relationship at the core is not the healthiest. And while I think it was very cathartic for me to read it at the time, I have no interest in rereading it now because I'm in a place where I don't want to be taken back to that. And that's also partly because I've already read it and I've already identified myself, like I've already embedded myself in the story, and so it would be impossible for me to reread it without seeing myself again, because that's just my experience with the text. But I do know that some of the people that I recommended it to came back to me, and it was a really like difficult reading experience for them because they've experienced trauma and they didn't find it cathartic. So, man. Next up is Conversations with Friends, also by Sally Rooney. So this is Sally Rooney's debut novel that came out before Normal People. I read it right after I finished Normal People because I loved Normal People so much and I wanted more. And Conversations with Friends is not the same plot as Normal People, and I was shocked. I was taken aback. I was angry with the book for not being Normal People. While Normal People follows these 2 lovers, friends from high school to college, Conversations with Friends follows 2 female best friends, one of whom is having an affair with a married man. And suddenly, I didn't see myself represented in the text and had a hard time connecting to it. And I think that's really my fault. Like, I wasn't the target audience for that text at the time that I read it because I was looking for more normal people. And for me to expect that from the book was unreasonable, and I went in with the wrong expectations, and then I was angry at the book for not being normal people but a little bit different. But like, if it had been Normal People but a little bit different, then it wouldn't have been good because Normal People was good enough. Like, it didn't need, like, I didn't need a second book, but that's what I wanted, and so it was unrealistic of me, and so then I ended up not liking it. Like, that's entirely my fault. Like, I picked up the book at the wrong time. I didn't read the description. I went in expecting to see myself in the story again, and when I didn't, I was mad, and that's the most immature response ever. But that's the response that I had, and like, it's not great, but it's what happened. Next up is Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. I have my physical copy with me here. I don't have most of my books. This one I do have. I picked this one up when I was in Warsaw. There aren't a lot of English bookstores there, and the one that I was in happened to have this. Uncarley had been talking about it recently. I felt like it was a twist of fate and I had to have it. It was just like, what are the coincidences that, like, of the 10 English books, there's gonna be like this one. So I picked it up and I told myself, I just spent like, you know, $15 on this book. I might as well, like, I have to actually read it. So I sat down and I started reading it that day, and I tore through it. I usually listen to books on audio, but I read this one with my eyeballs, and I was able to read it in a day. The language is really accessible, the story moves really quickly, there's a lot of like twists and turns and it's really fun, but at the same time it's dealing with really important themes of race and class and discrimination. It follows Amira, who is accused of kidnapping the white child that she babysits when she's at the supermarket one night, and shenanigans ensue. It also deals with a lot of interesting themes on labor and gratitude. Amira is a first-generation college student in her family, and she feels a lot of pressure to graduate and get a really good job and have this kind of corporate success that is set up when you go to university, but she finds that she simply does not dream of labor. So, loved this. Read it in a day, gave it 5 stars, can't recommend it highly enough. Love. Then comes My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. And Carly prefaces this by saying that it's like a controversial recommendation, that people either love it or hate it, and I completely agree. There's this unnamed narrator, and she's dealing with this trauma, and she feels like the only way to get over it is for her to remove herself from society for a year, and she does that by buying a whole bunch of sleeping pills and sleeping for a year. And if it sounds crazy, that's because it is. It's set in, you know, Y2K, very like atmospheric New York. You spend a lot of time in this like character's head, and she's really crazy. So if you're down for that, like crazy rich white woman, young, just graduated from Columbia, is sad in the city, then you'll love it. I really felt like I was like, okay, so like the bell jar but worse, question mark. It didn't do it for me. I was interested and I kept reading and I read it in a day, I listened to it on audio, and I like had fun, but whatever like greater mission Ottessa Moshfegh had when she was writing this, like I didn't get it. And maybe that's just because like I listened to it really quickly and I wasn't savoring it and I wasn't really critically analyzing it as I was going along. But for me, it fell a little bit flat, and it didn't do as much as I thought it would. And so I was disappointed by it, but I don't hate it. I just wouldn't recommend it, because if someone's looking for like woman sad in New York, takes lots of sleeping pills, read The Bell Jar. It's a classic for a reason. And then lastly, we get to Less, which I got from audio from my local library, and I was really excited about it. I bought the physical copy of this book like what, 3 years ago, and I didn't read it. I didn't read it until Uncarley would not stop recommending it to me, so I placed a hold on the audiobook from my local library, and when it became available, I started to listen to it lacklusterly, right? And this is on me. When I read a shorter book like this, I expect to read it in a day. Like, I expect it to be like a casual afternoon, evening activity, and then it's done. If it's a 7-hour audiobook, I'm listening to it on double speed, and then 3.5 hours later, I expect to be done. But this book was so boring that I couldn't finish it in a day. I got maybe 20% through and then gave up. And that's on me, right? Like, I understand that that's on me and that I can't really judge this book because I didn't finish it. It follows this man, Arthur Less, who is, he's an author, but he's not very good, and his like old ex-boyfriend was like incredible, like really like world-renowned, like thought leader of his time. And Arthur like is old now, he's like middle-aged, and he's having this existential crisis because he realizes that he hasn't achieved anything, and like he's invested himself in these like in 2 long-term relationships that never really went anywhere, and he has to deal with the fact that these are the choices he made and this is the life he now leads. And she describes it as fun, and I'm like, have you had fun? And this kind of like leads me to like my conclusion about like the kinds of books she reads. I enjoyed them all except for Less, but the larger problem for me is that like these aren't fun books. At least for me, they weren't. Are they books that make you think a lot? Yes. But are they fun to read? No. And I think that's just like a larger problem, is that like you read books that are really fun in middle school, like The Click, and then you go to high school and you start having required reading, like emphasis on the classics is introduced, and then people start to think that they don't like to read because they don't like to read the classics, and then once you become an adult, you start reading adult literary fiction, and it's like that's the only thing that's out there. And if you're like making a recommendation video on like how to get into reading, like, do I think that these are the best places for people to start? Not necessarily. Are they all good books? Yes. Am I glad that she's recommending them and that more people will read them? Yes. However, I'm like, where's the Cassandra Clare? Like, she's problematic as an author, but like her latest series was so good. Thinking about it makes me cry. And like, maybe that's just that we don't like have the same sense of humor, we don't like the same things, we don't like the same tropes. That's fine. I read to have fun. I read because it's something that I enjoy and it's something that helps me relax. And there are a lot of amazing benefits and like auxiliary bonuses to reading, like the way that it teaches incredible empathy, the way that you can learn new things and step into other people's like points of view and travel to places. All of these things are amazing benefits to reading and reasons why I'm really excited to get more people to read and why I think more people should read. But it is not the main reason why I read. I read because it's fun. And so first and foremost, I'm going to pick up books that I think I'm going to have fun reading. All of these books are books that are like nice to show off. Like, they're all intellectual and like relevant, and that's great. But like, I'm just at a point in my life where I'm not going to pretend that Crime and Punishment is my favorite book. Did I love reading it? Yes. Was it an amazing intellectual experience to analyze it and spend time with such a magnificent text? Yes. But was it my favorite book? No. Was it that fun to read? Also no. Like, I think there's a difference between the like academic side of myself and the way that I want to portray that and the things that I read for fun. And I think for Carly, like it's kind of in the middle and it's a little confusing to watch. In conclusion, does she have better taste than I do? Probably. Once again, I love her. I think she's so funny and she has good taste. I enjoyed most of these books. Let me know what you guys think about these books in the comments below. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all soon.